Breaking news. Benjamin Netanyahu just accused Keir Starmer of the most dangerous betrayal in modern British-Israeli history on live television. His exact words were so devastating that Number 10 went into complete lockdown within minutes. And what happened next could destroy Britain's relationship with its most important Middle Eastern ally forever. If you want to see how this diplomatic catastrophe unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now, because the next 72 hours will determine whether Britain still has any credibility left on the world stage. Here's what sparked the worst UK-Israel crisis in 50 years. Yesterday at 11:47 a.m. Jerusalem time, Prime Minister Netanyahu appeared before international press at the Knesset. His message was absolutely chilling. Standing before a packed chamber, he didn't just criticize Britain's recent UN vote against Israeli settlement expansion. He called it a calculated stab in the back. But Starmer wasn't watching. The Prime Minister was touring a factory in Birmingham instead. Netanyahu didn't wait for a response. He unleashed a diplomatic nuclear weapon that nobody saw coming. Netanyahu's exact words were chilling. When Britain needed allies against fascism, we stood ready. When terrorism threatened London's streets, Israeli intelligence saved British lives. And now Keir Starmer joins those who would see Israel erased from the map. The response was swift and devastating. Within 20 minutes, the Israeli Foreign Ministry summoned British Ambassador Simon Walters for what sources describe as the most hostile meeting in decades. Walters emerged looking pale and shaken, refusing all media questions. According to diplomatic sources present in the building, the ambassador was subjected to a 90-minute barrage of accusations. Deputy Foreign Minister Aidan Roll allegedly told him, "Your Prime Minister has chosen the side of terrorists over democracy." Within hours, the hammer fell. Israel announced immediate suspension of terrorists' intelligence sharing protocols with Britain. These protocols, established after the 7/7 London bombings in 2005, have prevented at least 14 major terrorist attacks on British soil, according to MI6 estimates. They're gone. Cancelled. Finished. But here's where it gets even worse. The intelligence suspension doesn't just affect future threats. It includes ongoing operations. 3 active investigations into suspected terror cells operating in Manchester, Birmingham, and East London have been frozen because Israeli data is now unavailable. Counter-terrorism officials at Thames House, MI5's headquarters, held an emergency session at 6:30 p.m. yesterday. One officer described it as the bleakest meeting in his 23-year career. "We're flying blind now," he told colleagues, according to leaked minutes. "We've lost eyes and ears on networks that took years to map." The implications are staggering. Britain's security apparatus has become significantly weaker overnight because of one UN vote that won't change a single fact on the ground in the Middle East. Meanwhile, British veterans who fought alongside Israeli forces in joint training exercises are watching in disbelief. Colonel James Richardson, retired from the Royal Marines after 32 years of service, was visibly shaking when he spoke to reporters. "I trained with the IDF. I saw their commitment, their sacrifice. And now our Prime Minister throws that partnership away for a meaningless UN vote that won't change anything on the ground." Colonel Richardson isn't alone. The Royal British Legion issued an unprecedented statement expressing deep concern about Britain's diplomatic direction. Major Sarah Hendricks, who served 3 tours coordinating with Israeli Defense Forces, recorded an emotional video that's now gone viral. "We shared intelligence that saved lives on both sides," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Now politicians who never wore the uniform are burning bridges that warriors built with blood." Her video has 4.7 million views and counting. While veterans who bled for their country watch their sacrifices dismissed, Labour MPs who pushed Starmer toward this UN vote are celebrating in Westminster wine bars. We're talking champagne toasts in Portcullis House, WhatsApp groups with names like Palestine Caucus Victory, sharing congratulations and emojis. Shadow Minister Zara Sultana posted, then quickly deleted a tweet saying, "Finally Labour grows a spine. The contrast is so stark, so obscene that even traditional Labour supporters are questioning what their party has become. This isn't foreign policy. This is virtue signalling while national security burns." And ordinary British families are the ones who will pay the price when the next terrorist attack succeeds because intelligence that could have stopped it no longer flows. Then something unprecedented happened that nobody saw coming. King Charles broke 70 years of royal protocol with one phone call. At 2:15 p.m. yesterday, Buckingham Palace contacted the Israeli embassy directly, not through the Foreign Office, not through diplomatic channels. The king himself requested an urgent conversation with Ambassador Tzipi Hotovely. At Windsor Castle, in a meeting lasting 45 minutes, Charles delivered what insiders describe as an extraordinary apology. The Crown does not speak for Parliament in all things, sources say the king told her, his voice heavy with regret. There are bonds between our nations that transcend temporary political fashions. Palace insiders reveal Charles was personally furious when he learned about Starmer's UN vote. One senior courtier, speaking on condition of anonymity, said the king felt blindsided and embarrassed. His Majesty has maintained strong relationships with Israeli leaders for decades. To see that undermined without consultation was devastating. The king reportedly reminded the ambassador of his 2016 visit to Israel, his private meetings with Holocaust survivors, and his decades-long commitment to Jewish-Christian dialogue. The optics are absolutely catastrophic for Starmer. When the king himself has to apologize for your foreign policy, you've lost all moral authority. But wait, because there's another layer to the royal intervention that hasn't been reported yet. According to palace sources, Charles didn't just call the Israeli ambassador. He also contacted Chief Rabbi Ephraim Mirvis at 4:30 p.m. the same day. The conversation lasted over an hour. Rabbi Mirvis, who has led Britain's Jewish community since 2013, expressed what insiders describe as profound alarm about rising anti-Semitism, disguised as anti-Israel policy. The chief rabbi reportedly told the king that British Jews feel abandoned by their own government. Synagogue attendance has dropped 30% in the past month because families fear being targeted. Jewish schools in London have requested additional police protection. One mother in Golders Green told the Jewish Chronicle she's considering moving to Israel because she no longer feels safe in the country. Her family has called home for 4 generations. Think about that. British citizens fleeing Britain because their government sided with those who want to destroy the only Jewish state. The king listened, sources say, and promised to do whatever was within his constitutional power to support the community. That conversation was immediately reported back to Downing Street through unofficial channels. The message was clear. The monarchy stands with Britain's Jewish community, even if the government doesn't. The domino effect hit the British economy like a freight train. Markets opened this morning to chaos. The FTSE 100 dropped 280 points in the first hour of trading as investors dumped UK assets. That's £47 billion wiped from Britain's market value in 60 minutes. British defence contractors with Israeli partnerships saw their share prices collapse. Before anyone else, systems down 8%, Rolls-Royce down 6%, major pension funds hemorrhaging value. But here's what makes it worse. Israeli tech companies have started pulling investments from British startups. Mobileye, the autonomous vehicle technology company, cancelled a £230 million research partnership with Cambridge University yesterday. The university's vice-chancellor described it as devastating for British innovation. Checkpoint Software, a cybersecurity giant, announced it's relocating its European research hub from London to Berlin. That's 340 high-paying jobs gone. Israeli venture capital firms that invested £2.3 billion in British tech last year are now looking at Dublin, Amsterdam and Paris instead. Inside the Labour Party, fractures became canyons. Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who had privately warned Starmer against the UN vote, was overheard in the Commons tea room saying, "I told him this would blow up in our faces." Deputy Leader Angela Rayner convened an emergency meeting with senior MPs at 7 p.m. Wednesday. According to attendees, she didn't defend Starmer once. Instead, she spent 90 minutes discussing damage control and succession planning. That tells you everything about where her loyalties lie now. International reactions came fast and brutal. In Washington, 73 US senators signed a letter expressing alarm at Britain's shift away from its traditional ally. Senator Tom Cotton, chairman of the Armed Services Committee, said Britain is no longer a reliable partner in Middle Eastern security. Germany's foreign minister called the situation deeply concerning. Even France, hardly Israel's biggest cheerleader, suggested Britain had damaged Western unity at a critical moment. In Australia, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said he was disappointed by Britain's choice. Canada's parliament passed a motion supporting Israel's right to defend itself with only Liberal opposition, a direct rebuke to Britain's position. Social media exploded into absolute warfare. Hashtag Defend Israel trended #1 in Britain for 14 straight hours. Hashtag Starmer the Betrayer hit 2.1 million tweets in 24 hours. Protests erupted across Jewish communities in London, Manchester, and Leeds. Thousands gathered outside Downing Street chanting, "Shame on Labour, shame on Starmer." Counter-protesters showed up within hours, creating tense standoffs that required hundreds of police officers to prevent violence. Inside #10, the atmosphere is pure panic. Ministers are openly feuding about who pushed Starmer into this disaster. Defence Secretary John Healey allegedly slammed a folder on the table during Wednesday's cabinet meeting and shouted, "We just destroyed 20 years of counter-terrorism cooperation for what?" A symbolic vote that achieves nothing. Foreign Secretary David Lammy was overheard saying this is worse than Suez in reference to Britain's 1,956 diplomatic catastrophe. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has reportedly stopped attending cabinet meetings, sending junior ministers instead. Her allies whisper she's protecting herself from association with this catastrophe. WhatsApp groups with names like Rational Labour and National Security First are plotting to force a cabinet revolt. The question isn't if they'll move against Starmer, it's when. Senior civil servants in the Foreign Office describe complete chaos. One diplomat told The Times, "We're receiving calls from allies asking if Britain has lost its mind. I don't have answers anymore." Another Mandarin with 30 years of experience said he's considering early retirement because he can't defend policies he finds indefensible. Starmer looked absolutely haunted in Prime Minister's questions yesterday. Sources say he barely slept and his hands were shaking when he gripped the dispatch box. The man who promised steady leadership looks like he's drowning in consequences he never anticipated. But here's the layer that could bring down the entire government. Leaked intelligence documents show Starmer was explicitly warned this would happen. The Joint Intelligence Committee prepared a classified briefing 3 weeks ago titled Consequences of UK Vote Against Israel in UNSC. Page 7, paragraph 3 states in black and white, high probability of Israeli intelligence suspension with severe implications for UK counter-terrorism capability. If these documents are real, and if they show what multiple sources claim, then Starmer knew exactly what he was risking and did it anyway. Think about what that means. British families are now more vulnerable to terrorist attacks because the Prime Minister chose political theatre over their safety. The optics of that would be absolutely devastating. Conservative MPs are already demanding a full parliamentary inquiry. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman called it the most reckless decision by a British Prime Minister in modern history. She's demanding Starmer appear before the Intelligence and Security Committee to explain why he ignored explicit warnings from Britain's own security services. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak is seizing the moment with surgical precision. While Starmer drowns in his own mistakes, Sunak appeared at a British-Israeli business forum in London yesterday looking confident and composed. "When I was Prime Minister," he declared, "Britain stood with democracies, not with those who celebrate terrorism." The applause lasted 45 seconds. Standing ovation. The contrast couldn't be sharper. Sunak, strong, principled, reliable. Starmer panicked, isolated, dangerous. Sunak followed up with a brilliantly timed Telegraph op-ed titled, "Britain must stand with its allies, not abandon them." The piece has been shared 890,000 times across social media. In it, Sunak reminds readers that under Conservative leadership, Britain maintained its special relationship with both America and Israel. He points out that terrorist attacks on British soil decreased by 60% during his tenure, precisely because intelligence partnerships remain strong. The polls tell the story that should terrify Labour. A Savanta survey released this morning shows Conservative support surging to 36%, Labour collapsing to 29%, and Reform UK climbing to 18%. For the first time since the general election, the Tories lead by 7 points. Among voters over 50, the demographic that actually shows up on election day, Labour's support has cratered by 19 points in 1 week. In constituencies with significant Jewish populations, Labour is down an astonishing 34 points. Sunak isn't just gaining ground, he's watching Labour self-destruct in real time. And he's doing it without saying a word against the Jewish community or appearing divisive. Pure political mastery. The next 7 days are absolutely critical. Israel has threatened further measures if Britain doesn't reverse its UN position. That could mean ending all diplomatic cooperation, recalling their ambassador, or even economic sanctions against British companies. Netanyahu's government is under enormous domestic pressure to respond forcefully. In Jerusalem, opposition leaders are calling him weak if he doesn't escalate. Benny Gantz, Netanyahu's main rival, told Israeli television, Britain must face consequences or other nations will follow their shameful example. Inside the Knesset, there's talk of severing economic agreements worth billions. Britain is watching its international reputation collapse in real time. This diplomatic crisis will be studied for decades as the moment when virtue signalling destroyed practical alliances that kept British citizens safe. At its epicenter stands Keir Starmer, who looks increasingly desperate, isolated, and completely out of his depth as Prime Minister. Cabinet members are fleeing, allies are vanishing, and the polls show a nation that's lost faith in his judgment. This isn't just a political crisis anymore. This is the potential end of a premiership that promised so much and delivered catastrophic failure. So here's the question that matters. Did Starmer just commit the most catastrophic foreign policy blunder since Iraq? Did he sacrifice British security for political points with Labour's hard left? Or is Netanyahu overreacting to a vote that means nothing? What do you think? Did Starmer betray Israel, or is this manufactured outrage? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story shocked you as much as it shocked us, share it with everyone who needs to see what's really happening in Westminster right now. The mainstream media won't tell you the full truth about how badly this government is failing Britain, but we will. Hit that subscribe button because tomorrow we're revealing the secret Labour WhatsApp messages that prove this disaster was planned weeks in advance. The next chapter could destroy Starmer's career forever.